May 22nd. I'll remind everyone that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded. First on our agenda is the clerk's report. We no longer actually have a clerk, but I am ready to give that report. So since our last meeting on May 8th, we did receive 4 correspondences to the planning board. All of those were related to the 40B projects in process, and were general emails sent to more than just the planning board. So they were more to keep us in the loop, make us aware of different concerns that they have. So we did receive those. Moving on, we will go to public comment. So Anna is on, that's good. So if there is any public comment on general issues, anyone online can feel free to raise their hand, and Alvaro will have you unmute. There's no one in the room on this fine May evening, so.
We have one. Yeah. Joan, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hello, Joan Gonfrati, thank you so much. I just quickly, I just hope that the planning board will consider speaking with the ZBA and select board about creating a task force to work with a special counsel to find a way to reduce the impact of the 40B project in Ashland. I mean, I realize the ZBA is is in charge, and but I'm hoping that something can be done behind the scenes to try to push back. Falmouth hired an outside attorney, George Pucci. He was able to craft 91 conditions. There was an appeal on a limited number of the conditions, and they went to the Housing Appeals Committee. They ended up with a mediated settlement negotiated between the developer's lawyer and attorney Pucci. He negotiated the original 900 units down to 300 max, a 50-foot landscape buffer, moved the buildings, leaving a large area undeveloped. The developer also agreed to build sidewalks and an on-site sewage treatment plant. This tells us it can be done. I mean, absolutely no reflection on our town council or our zoning board, but with the potential for 4 40Bs coming. If we hire a special counsel whose sole priority is 40B, we can get projects that are infinitely better for Ashland if we set enough conditions and push back hard enough. Excuse me. Their finance committee allocated just $30,000 to pay for the lawyer, George Pucci's services. We can all agree that was money well spent. The infrastructure for these projects will cost the town millions. It can be done. I respectfully request the select board and planning board work with the zoning board to look into hiring this lawyer or one whose sole work is 40B to make these the best projects for Ashland. Respectfully, please help us push back before it's too late. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but that's my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. I don't have any questions, but why don't you feel free to send any links or any information that you have. I don't remember seeing that in your email, so maybe you could send it to the board as well.
I will. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other hands raised, we will go on to item number 4, which is public hearings. The only one on our agenda this evening is 240 to 260 Pleasant Street. This is the soccer fields by the Metro West facilities, and that was continued on May 8th. And I think tonight we're getting an update on the status of that project.
Yes.
Right, overall?
So we have with us Chris Peretti, who is part of the designing team, and he will give us a little bit of an update. Also, just on a side note, as we have 2 new board members, I will be re-advertising this project. So on the meeting on June 12th, this project will be able to come back. They will give a presentation and explanation of the project, and then from then, everybody will be able to vote as they move forward. So with that being said, Chris, you can just give us an update on the project.
Yeah, hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so as I'm sure you guys are aware, we have asked for a continuance for this plan until June 12th. We are waiting on getting the peer review consultant lined up, and we have the peer review consultant didn't line up. We were just waiting to get that process started with our client. And then when we receive those comments, we will update the plan and be ready for June 12th.
And where is the conservation, can you remind me where the conservation process is? Does that come after? Is that going to be done simultaneously?
We have had one meeting so far with the conservation, and I believe we have another meeting. I'm not positive, but I'm filling in for a colleague tonight. But yeah, we've had one meeting with conservation so far, and we've also had a meeting with the design review committee, and we've received those comments as well.
Okay, great, thank you. So overall, the deadline had been already moved back on this project, but now, as Elva was explaining, because this is a project that was already in process, and we have discussed it, was it once or twice? I think,
Twice.
yeah, so that because there were 2 meetings of the project, you guys wouldn't be eligible to actually vote on the project. So, and since obviously we want to have a full board, and since it's a special permit, we actually they need at least a 4-vote approval. So the project will be relisted and re-advertised, which means it's kind of a fresh start. And then we start from the beginning, and so you will be voting members on that project. So it starts everything over. It starts the clock over. So they're already in process. They've already done some of the work, but the clock will begin again as a fresh project. So I think they are making maybe at least one change to their application, so it'll just be a clean start in that way.
Yeah, it shouldn't be late in any way. If anything, it's going to be a continuation. Like Tricia said, they already have started the process. They provided us with the net plans and the fee for GCG, who is the peer reviewer. So probably, if anything, it's going to be smoother as a transition once the June 12th meeting starts.
All right, thank you. So
Thank you.
are there any questions from the board? Any further questions? Okay, then we will be continuing this to May 12th. Oh, June 12th, right? Do you want to make that?
Motion to move 240, 260 Pleasant Street, Metro West facilities to June 12th.
I'll second that.
All right, and now we'll have a new, we do a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
And Chestnut-Itsky, aye.
Can we just?
Oh,
Wait,
that's
sorry.
right.
Yes.
That's right.
Have you have not sworn
No.
in yet? Yes. If you guys have not been sworn, don't vote.
So, and actually, can Scott on this? He has,
No,
Can
I
you
guess
vote
because this will be the
continue?
continuance and then there will be the opening.
okay, we're going to end it there then, because only the people that were involved in the project will continue, but that's still 3, and we can continue on that. So, okay, we'll do that the next time. Yes, yeah, these transition periods. Okay, so that project is now continued to June 12th, at which time it will be kind of starting afresh with all new members of the board. Okay,
Thank you,
Great.
Chris.
thank you for the update.
Thank you.
All right, so so Anna, who is online, Anna can see at least our new members. Do we
Welcome.
want to? Do we want it? I thought I would wait for the West Union and just move that down just a little bit and go to item number 6, because Camilo does have a hard stop at 8. So so maybe we'll do the board reorganization first and then continue on with our agenda. But I didn't know if we wanted to do some brief introductions, since, I mean, I know them both now, as at least somewhat, but maybe just get a little summary of your time on the board, what you do in your day job, that kind of thing, before we go on.
Sure. Seems like a good idea. Do you want to start with me because I'm floating above you guys?
Yes, why don't you do that?
All right. First of all, welcome. Very excited to see a full board, and obviously excellent job relative to the election for both of you. So my background is I moved to Ashland as a teenager. My family is a family of immigrants from the former Soviet Union, came to Ashland, bought our first home, living the American dream on Metropolitan Avenue. I went to Ashland High School, graduated from Ashland High School, and after college and law school, eventually found my way back to Ashland. And in moving back here, wanted to give back. I'm an attorney by training. I've done public policy work in various settings in different communities where I've lived, and I wanted to return and give back to the community that gave me so much. Without my education in Ashland, I would not have gone to the college that I had. The former superintendent of Ashland High School really supported me, and so did the principal in applying for colleges. And I felt as if this is where I wanted to raise my family and give back to the community as well. I'm trying to remember what year this is for me on the planning board. It might be my, I don't know, third or fourth year, something like that.
It was right, wasn't it 2020? Wasn't it right when we did those, zoning changes? I want to say we were in the auditorium for COVID.
Sounds
And-
about
Yeah,
right.
so I think it was
That would make it
2020.
4 or 5 years. Time flies. So here we are, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you. And in my regular day job, I have a law degree, but I work for a company on the compliance side in a finance company.
All right, thank you.
Welcome again. I have been on the planning board for 4.5 years now. I came in as filling in a vacancy and then had a full term. My training is in architecture, but I've worked for 20 years in interior design. And recently I changed my line and I'm owner's project manager, so kind of working with different municipalities on different project types right now. So that's my short and sweet intro.
I think I've talked to both of you, so individually.
So thank you for the introductions. It's excited to be here. My name is Camilo Spitia. I live on 3 Treasure Way. I've been living here in Ashland for about almost 6 years now. Moved from Newton first, and New York, Miami, Colombia, which is where I'm originally from. I have a bachelor's in architecture, which is what I did for a couple of years, almost 15 years between Miami, New York, and some years in Boston. And then I did my master's in city planning. That's what I do now. I'm the deputy director of the Department of Planning and Development for the city of Lowell. I've been working with them for almost 5 years. And for the same reasons, trying to give back to my community. I do other work for Lowell, and I figured I can do it. I can do it for Ashland as well. And in one of the interviews that we did together with Scott, one of the most important things that I think is the job to do here, for me at least, is however we look at the town for the future, for the kids to be able to stay here when they grow up, stay with their families, with their friends, the community that they know, and providing them with that opportunity and being part of that team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name's Scott Pelletier. I am day one. I got here just now. Signed in earlier today. I think I did it just by the 3 o'clock deadline for me to get sworn in. My family and I lived in Ashland for almost 8 years now. We live on Warren Road. We back up to the state park, which is really nice. I take my dog walking every day, on leash, of course. And I'm excited. I wanted to give back to the community. I'm on the Ashland Business Association. And we came here for a meeting, and the select board was here. We had a conversation, and they said this spot was open. It really kind of piqued my interest of how to give back. I'm also a member of the high school site council. My older son graduated from high school last year. My younger son is graduating this year in a couple weeks. I guess I could stay on as a community member. So I really like being involved and kind of knowing what's going on and seeing how I can help shape it. I moved around a ton, grew up in Western Mass, but bounced around to a whole bunch of different places. This is the first town, including the one I grew up in, that I really feel like there's a sense of community throughout the whole community. And I really enjoy that. You know, I really want to see, like, what can this town do next? I'm really excited about that.
Great, thank you. All right. Like I said, I thought I would, the reorganizing the board, which is just where we kind of make sure all the seats are filled and do some committee assignments if we're ready to do that. But we always do it when there's a full board. And last year, I think it took us until August because someone was always missing or we had such a full agenda, we just couldn't get it done. So, so I wanted to take the opportunity and do it, man, first thing, and let's just get it resolved so that we can. That's right, catch us when we're all here, so that we can just move on with the work that we need to do. So the first thing we always do is the chair, and so far I'm just going to turn it over to Alvaro briefly. Actually, I'm not sure. Well, I'll have you be in control of the process. But I will say that last year at this time, or last year in August, I was really looking to give the position away. I had at that time been chair for 3 years, and but given everyone's busy schedules, I think, and busy work schedules, and the fact that I'm very local, it did fall back to me with everyone taking trying to take a little bit more of the load, you know, off me for the year, which helped. This year, and I'm very happy to hear anyone else that is interested, but I feel like this year, given that we will be getting a new director of planning, we'll be getting a new assistant planner. We have 2 new members who I assume aren't interested in stepping into the chair of the board. That I've had kind of, and I know that both Anna and Deepa have extremely busy work schedules right now. So I have decided that it might, given my experience as chair, it might just be that I'm willing to stay on as chair if that suits the board and help us make a transition into the new town staff positions and new members of the board. So that said, I'm happy to hear. So I've thrown my hat into the ring. I'll let Alvaro, I guess, ask if there's anyone else.
I guess I'll jump in and comment that I do believe with a brand new board and the reorganization, if Tricia is willing to continue, that would make the most sense to me at this time. I do think that, you know, with new members, once we all get acquainted, if there's interest, you know, I guess my question would be, how often do we want to reorganize? Only for elections or at the start of the year, et cetera? I, for one, would be open to an annual discussion rather than just when we have new members, so that if others who have become more acquainted, like the new members we just got, if they want to be considered for a seat, if you will, at the table as leadership for the planning board, I would be open to having this discussion, you know, at the start of every year, for example, rather than waiting until we have somebody new on the board, so that we can give Tricia an occasional relief opportunity, because I think in the past she has sometimes wanted to walk away and could not. So with that, I certainly support Tricia's interest and would be happy to vote for it.
And actually we do, it might seem like it was a long time ago, but we actually do, after every May, we talk about reorganizing the board. But last year in particular, we just couldn't get the 5 of us. First, we had very busy agendas, and we just couldn't fit it in. We had to, I don't know what was in front of us at the time. And then, but I believe it was August before we finally did it.
Yeah, I think we tried. You tried, and from May onwards, it just didn't happen. But I think, and I was curious when you said annually. Right now, we are doing it. Just that we're not following calendar year, but we're following the new term. year, but were you thinking of something different?
I mean, if we're doing it every May, thank you for Tricia for reminding me, if we kind of have, I guess I want to make sure we're doing it yearly, even if we don't have an election, meaning even if we don't have a replacement for someone.
Sure.
You know, if we have the exact same membership and nothing changes, it's still a good thing to do as a matter of practice. I don't think we have formal rules as a planning board, and so I'm just suggesting that, in my opinion, Tricia does a lot. I think it's great she's willing to step up. I think with new membership, it makes a lot of sense for her to continue. However, I do want to give our new members a chance at the table if they grow in confidence and comfort and they want that. You know, as long as we're coming back to this yearly, it's a good thing to come back to.
I will be happy next May if someone is ready to take the reins. Meanwhile, we will have intense training between now and then so that someone is ready to do that. So,
Be careful what you ask for.
right, maybe so.
Isn't there an election every year for a position on the planning board?
Yeah.
So if we do it after each election in May, then it stays annual and makes the most sense.
Yeah, it is when we typically do it. The board doesn't always change every May because people can be reelected.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, like if we just do it
Yes.
post-election every May.
Yeah,
Yes.
like
And then
second
it's-
meeting in May.
Anna's request for every year, and then this way, okay.
yeah, that is what we'll be doing. So,
So do we move to
I think we need a
nominate
motion.
you?
I'll make a motion to appoint Tricia as chair of the planning board.
Second that.
And a roll call vote?
And on this one, I think Scott does can vote. Camila still has to hold on.
Okay.
I'm gonna have one more vote than you out of the whole year.
So Deepa, I think you start the voting, right?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Scott Pelletier.
And Tricia Kendall, you didn't say how you're voting, though.
Oh, yes. What do how do I
Aye.
say it? Aye?
We usually say aye,
Okay.
but which is just what the board did before me, so that's why we do it that way. No other reason. I never gave it another thought. You'll notice that the school committee votes a different way, the select board votes a different way.
Both of my boards have always voted like that, so that's
Yeah.
everything I know.
Oh, vote
Yeah.
how we vote?
Yeah, planning board and zoning board both the same way, so.
Okay,
I don't know, maybe Peter did it? He
Maybe.
left something?
yeah, well, yeah, I don't know, so, okay. So anyway, I guess that's that. The next thing would then be a vice chair. And so, and Anna, I have a question for you on this time. This will be a little discussion. I know obviously that you are very busy in what you're doing. It seems to have gotten even busier in the past 6 months. Anna has been serving as the vice chair, and I assume will be continuing to serve as our member of the comprehensive plan this year. So I'm wondering if that role, if the vice chair still works for you, or that now that Deepa has changed jobs, maybe has a little bit more availability, if that's something a role you want to continue on, or what are your thoughts on that?
So if you are interested in stepping up to vice chair, I certainly would be open for a conversation. We also need a secretary because we lost Kate, right? And so she used to have that position. So there is a benefit for me to continue in the vice chair position because I am still the only member currently on the comprehensive plan committee. And so there's some benefit to that. And certainly if Deepa has more time and we do have other roles, if you will. But Deepa, if you have strong kind of preference to try vice chair, I certainly would be flexible and could potentially support the board on the secretary position. So where are you with this, Deepa?
I, like Trisha said, I am off one board, so I do have a little bit of breathing room. So as much as I say that, it was a challenge to take the first step on that next topic. But I do have time, so I can support. But if you want to continue as a vice chair, I'd be happy to step into the clerk role if that's something.
You're saying you'd be willing to try either one?
Yes.
Either the secretary position or the vice chair.
Yes.
Do we have interest from our new members in either position before we move forward with an official sort of here's who wants to do what?
Yeah, so there's the vice chair. The vice chair basically becomes, I think for me, the vice chair is someone I need as a sounding board, because via open meeting law, we can't discuss a topic other than in public meetings with more than one other person. So as chair, issues are coming at me regularly outside of meetings, and homework that needs to be done between meetings. And so I find that it would be really good to have a sounding board, someone that's available to have phone calls in the evening, or obviously not every evening, but to talk things through. And so that's the kind of availability I'm looking for, that the vice chair also would step in and run the meeting if the chair wasn't here for whatever reason. That could be because you're out of town, you're sick, or it could be because a project comes up where I would need to recuse myself. So the vice chair would step in and run the meeting.
There's also the secretary position, which we have recently really defined well with our former member, Kate, that involves essentially keeping track of public comment that we receive, reporting to the board at every meeting, a summary of the public comment. Kate also kept us organized relative to specific tasks, if you will, a checklist for every project.
Yes, it's important to note that the secretary, who actually we called the clerk,
Clerk, so
yeah,
sorry.
does not take meeting minutes. That is done for us. It gets done by someone outside.
Yep.
So
I will say that as busy as I am, planning board business is still very important to me. And I think Tricia and I when I've run the meetings, I think it's gone well to kind of cover for Tricia, and I'm very comfortable with that role. Right now, we don't have any big projects coming up that I'm aware of where, unless I'm wrong, and maybe you can speak to this, but I'm not aware of any major projects that require heavy lifting outside of our meetings right now. So the responsibilities right now of vice chair, as far as I know, and Tricia can correct me, are relatively light. I will also add that we need a second member of the planning board on the comprehensive plan committee. And there, again, if I'm the only one right now on the comprehensive plan, there is some benefit, I think, of having me in the vice chair position, so that when we present the comprehensive plan to the public and we aim to get it approved at town meeting, there can be a unified front between me and Tricia as chair and vice chair, and that can have some benefit, I think, for the public's support of the comprehensive plan. So with all of that, I'm curious where our new members are, what their interests are in all of this.
Correct me if I'm
Before
wrong.
I
You don't have
formally
to be a
commit it.
vice chair to present the comprehensive plan.
You don't have to be. I'm just
No.
saying that there could be a benefit to that.
no, well,
as
and maybe
chair.
it would be best to look to introduce the other things as well. So on the planning board, obviously there's the chair, the vice chair, and the clerk, which actually we didn't, until Kate joined the board, we didn't use that position. It was kind of a new position that Kate kind of formed. But other things in the board, and we can, if you turn to the second page of the agenda under reports, besides design review committee, those are openings. The comprehensive plan, the community preservation committee, and the Metro West Regional Collaborative. These are places where we do have openings for people to participate. I had sent, I don't know if you received it, I had sent, I think it was just yesterday after the election, I had sent to Camilo and Scott talking about positions where I thought, and it's always up to you to volunteer or not volunteer, but positions that I thought might be of interest to you. For Camilo, I had asked about the Metro West Regional Collaborative, given that he's already has his fingers into the wider world of planning out there outside of Ashland. And it's a good way to make contacts in the Metro West region. And for Scott, I had asked him if he might be interested in the Community Preservation Committee, mostly because of a conversation we had where he was already interested in, hey, how can we have better fields? How can we access different types of, how can we work on different types of projects that way? Those just sprung to mind when I was talking to you both about different things, but you're not obligated into anything or no position at all. Those positions have been empty in the past as well. So, and then as Anna was saying, there's also a second seat on the comprehensive plan, which I think will run about 3 more meetings, I've heard. Is that right?
So it's difficult to predict because it depends on certain steps, if you will, in the process. So the comprehensive plan process is a multi-year process for the town of Ashland. There's a large committee of precinct representatives and different groups in town, including 2 members of the select board, 2 members of the planning board. The comprehensive plan committee also is supposed to have a planner, and right now we have no planner on that committee. The budget for the consultant is running out, and the consultant is only available for a limited time. However, the comprehensive plan committee needs to complete the drafting and also the public input section before the comprehensive plan can be presented to the planning board. So with the consultant, there's probably 3 more meetings, but if you include the rewriting and the involvement of the public, it can certainly be more. And because of a lack of a planner, the new member of the board who mentioned he's currently in a planning role, I'm very curious if you would be interested in that particular seat, because frankly, we need someone like you right now to help wrap up the comprehensive plan process. So I'm curious from both of you what your reaction is to all this before I officially confirm my interest in the vice chair position.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the extent of the involvement. I mean, I've done master plans myself for other communities, and I worked for the one for Lowell, so I'll be comfortable with navigating the world of our master plan. I guess I would need to understand more, what's the involvement, what's left, and what will be the extent of the needs for that planner on the comprehensive plan, and for the Metro West Regional Collaborative. I'm also reading more about what that entails and what that means before I commit. But I'm happy to help, but I just want to make sure that I don't overcommit to stuff.
Yeah.
I myself cover the council meetings in Lowell. That has me working Tuesday nights. I already have our bi-weeklies Thursday nights. So it's eating quite a few of the hours, which is fine. So I don't want to answer it now. If I have time, if I can get time to read more about what this means, I'll be more than happy to get back to you with either or of the 4 categories.
And I'd be happy to
I
chat with you outside of the meeting about the comprehensive plan
Yep.
work. I can tell you, I would consider that to be very more urgent, if you will, in my opinion, than the other thing. Just because we're understaffed on the town side.
And in this Metro West Regional Collaborative, does it need to be filled now?
No.
Because to Anna's point, I would argue the comprehensive plan is at its later stages. It probably needs the person now
Yes.
versus this. If this is something that we can go back as Ashland and say, here we have a member of the planning board, but in, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, whenever we can offset some of the tasks here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm even just thinking that now that we're having this, we're having this discussion, and then I don't think really there's any need to assign necessarily positions tonight. If someone's interested in a position, they can certainly say. If we want to all give it some thought and come back on the 12th, we can do that and see. I mean, if, like I said, if someone has an interest, that's fine. We can talk about that now, but if not, we can certainly wait until the 12th.
I was bringing it up because it gives context for the vice chair position or the secretary position, so that if our new members are interested in a particular item, gives them a sense of capacity and time.
And I would argue that in the sense of urgency, maybe whenever you have a chance, we can talk about the plan.
For sure.
Tomorrow or the weekend or something like that, and then we can gauge.
So are
next
you
steps.
or Scott interested in either the clerk position or the vice chair position?
I'm not. Not at this
Right now.
moment. 6 hours after I said yes.
Yep.
I just, and by the way, when you leave at 8 o'clock, you're gonna get assigned to all these things. No, I am interested in the Community Preservation Committee. I really want to get on that one. And I'm open to at least one other of the other positions that are on there. I don't really want to do the clerk or the vice spot right now.
I mean, we don't have to fill up all the positions right now,
No,
right?
but
It's
I'm
not like-
interested in being on,
Yeah.
I'm okay with
So-
being on more than one committee, and I want
Yeah.
to kind of contribute to them.
Yeah, we don't, and I do think I do think the comprehensive, not the comprehensive plan, Community Preservation Committee, too many Cs. I do think they have a meeting the first week of June. So if you want, we could both go to that meeting as an introduction and see if you want to fill that seat and officially, I mean, if you're sure you want to do it, I'm happy to, that you can go in that seat. Okay. And can we?
So what I will suggest is, I definitely believe in collaboration and new energy, and I think the fact that Deepa is interested in the vice chair position is really great. What I would suggest is I have me remain in that until the comprehensive plan is all wrapped up, and I don't think we need to wait until May. If after we wrap up the comprehensive plan, if Deepa wants to kind of reverse roles and step up to the vice chair position and nobody else is interested in clerk, we can figure things out. So if Deepa is open to kind of the back and forth, because I think a lot of these roles are really who's available. When Trisha needs support, we all jump in, whoever is open. So with that in mind, I will throw, I would love to be vice chair for the time being. And if
Okay.
there's anyone interested in making a motion, I would appreciate it.
I second that.
All right, our roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Yana Tesmanitsky, aye.
Oh, that's you, Scott. And Trisha Kendall, aye. We have to skip this guy for now.
Sorry, I can't hear you guys.
Oh, Yep.
Scott was kind of confused, like wondering what order is this that we're going in? But we always start with Deepa, and then we go to Anna,
It's, I think, when we
And
joined the board.
right? And I'm always at the
That's-
chairs at the end. So,
So it will be by alphabetical order.
no.
No.
So,
I think that's how
That's a good one,
for some
actually.
reason, we got into that, like, I
think it
joined
was to-
after Trisha.
Yeah.
So for some reason, I always had landed up, then Anna joined, and
Yeah.
then we had other members. So
Yeah.
for some reason, we got into that rhythm.
so I think
But-
it was seniority and then chair at the end. So,
But you're most welcome to change it.
welcome to our odd traditions, right? So,
I
okay.
will say, we as a board don't have formal rules, and that can be something that we take upon ourselves for the future. And so if our new members have an interest in some ideas of formality and organization, I would be delighted by that work.
So, just as the last thing, Scott, so if you are interested in that position, I am happy to make a formal nomination to put Scott Pelletier in the position of the representative to the Community Preservation Committee.
I second that.
All right, then there's another roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Yana Tesmanitsky, aye.
You can vote for yourself.
Scott Pelletier, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So, and I will let you know about that meeting, and I will plan that I'll go with you and make introductions, and so you can get to know the group.
it only took 6 hours.
And then are you gonna step up for the clerk position?
Do we have to fill it?
I'm not sure we need to fill it.
Yeah.
Let me look at that. I've been kind of setting up my own email to put in the correspondences that we get, to kind of more integrate Kate's role into our normal
Yeah.
process.
makes
That's what I've
sense.
been doing.
I think in other boards, sometimes when you don't have a staff member, the clerk is kind of like the person that assists on like those little things. So maybe like on the next meeting, you decide who will be maybe like an extra point person to like reach out to any extra staff here in the
Okay.
town.
Okay.
I will say,
sounds good.
we're not gonna have a planner shortly when, without a planner, I for one think having a clerk made a great difference for the public, and it is one more leadership role, so that there is an official third person on this board with a title of leadership. So I for one would really recommend it in light of Deepa's availability, and there's a way we can define that role and make it even better. I would hate to lose the traction that we gained with such a public participation focus that
Well,
Kate had.
I'm going to table that one actually then to the 12th, because I'm not sure, I want Deepa to be sure she wants to step into that role. We should need to discuss actually what it is, because I have been incorporating those things basically just into the normal way, into a normal meeting. So we'd want to really define what that role might be, what it needs to be if we need it, and what it might become. So I also want to note that the second position on the comprehensive plan, if it isn't something that you can do at this time or interested in at this time, I will be stepping forward to take that position. So we will have a second person on that committee, so you don't have to feel that it's do or die. So, but yours if you would like it. So,
Just a
Scott?
question, if, because they're gonna talk soon, right, like hopefully over the weekend, if you like it, can he start participating in it before we vote, or does he?
Can I
yes.
make one clarification on the comprehensive plan position? My understanding, Tricia, is that it does need to be voted upon and approved both by the planning board as a unit and by the select board. I don't think we can just plug someone into Kate's role. If I recall, the 2 planning board members and the 2 select board members were selected by each group and then voted upon together.
Right, so that's true.
There's a
So we'll
formal-
need, first
there's
we'll
a
need,
formal
so
process.
that's
We
right.
can't just throw somebody in.
Yep, I got it. Wait, so,
Both of you,
right,
both
so,
of you
so
expressed
we'll see if,
interest.
so I will see if, Camille can see if he is interested. If he is interested, then we will follow that proper process with the select board. If he determines that he cannot do it at this time, then I will submit, we will again decide as our group, and then we will follow the proper process. So, so yes, we'll make sure things are done properly.
Just to make
All right.
it clear, yeah.
Okay.
And again, I would be delighted to have a planner on that group, because without a planner in the room, it's been very difficult.
All right, so it is
8
actually
p.m.
exactly 8 o'clock,
Message
and I
from
want to be
Peter.
respectful of your time and wherever you need to be.
You're being missed on comprehensive plan team.
So,
I'll text him right now.
yeah, and so those are, and the other things on the list are, we're reviewing a letter we've been putting together for the most recent 40B. Obviously, that just goes to the state and the zoning board of appeals. It doesn't come before our board, but will be, the letter actually needs to be submitted by the end of May, but it was something that the 3 of us were drafting, and we will definitely, once the draft is put together, it will be sent to all board members, so that you'll have a chance to comment on it as well. It'll be happening pretty quickly over the next 5 or 6 days.
So like it's like comment. Sorry, so it's comment via email, and then we're sending it.
Right, it'd be comment back to Alvaro. Sometimes, and we'll determine if we need to do that, sometimes we do call a very short meeting online to discuss those things, and we may need to do that. You know, when we get discussing it, we'll see if it's necessary to do.
And I guess just a note to that point, make sure that you always reply just to one person. Don't reply all, because that will be breaking the open meeting law. So if you get an email from anybody from the planning board, you don't want to reply it to all, you will reply to that person and then send anything to me, so that way it's not breaking the open meeting law.
What email do you send it to?
You both today, the town clerk will set up your emails, so you guys will be getting a email on ashlandmass.com email.
I believe that that's already in process to get you an Ashland
not
email
right.
address.
Okay.
So question on this, are we ready to go to the next topic?
I'm just actually seeing if Amelia needs to go. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. This is not my official, I guess. Next one will be my official. I get sworn in next week, so thank you so much.
And
Thank you, good luck.
you're welcome, and I can catch up with you to about the end of the meeting as well. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Very nice to meet you.
Okay, so, Deepa, you were in the middle of asking a question.
Do we always have to send a letter for the 40B? I really like Joan's suggestion, but I was just curious because as I was looking for points, I myself was not convinced
Convinced.
on the information I kind of started to pull out for that zoning part. So it didn't feel powerful enough for me itself. So I was just curious, like, do we always have to respond?
We do not have to respond, but in the binders, I think, is this in the binders? This, I put in for, especially since we have new members, the process for 40B projects. And so it's one of the few ways that is in the official process that the planning board can contribute to that process. It's not required, but it would be, in a way, giving up one of the avenues that we have. Now, that said, as we know from previous projects, our letters can be long and detailed. I don't expect this one to be, but the first one was long and detailed, and it didn't make any change that I can see in the official process. However, I think that letter also does go to the architects and the team, so that they can read our concerns in that letter. So I feel in that way it has some value, even if it doesn't change the process.
I think where I was coming from is like the first project that we wrote that letter, we had spent over a year on that project, right? So we were in some way connected to the history of that project, so we were so vested in it. So the letter was powerful, at least from our end, irrespective of what the final decision is. 61 Waverly, the next project, I think the tone kind of started to come down. And now when I was starting to kind of gather information for this third project, it was like, it didn't feel compelling for myself when I wrote only that one small section. I don't know how the two of you felt when you pulled out information, because the drawings don't have so much information, right? It's hard to talk about density because you don't have that full information in front of you. So you can't talk about the emergency vehicle kind of turning radius because the drawings are not complete. So you know so less about the project except those 10 pages that was given to you. I personally struggled to even gather 5 sentences for that scope. So I don't know how the two of you felt when you kind of looked at it. So I was wondering if there's like a better way to convey our intent. And I'd really liked our public comment this evening that maybe there's other ways to kind of mitigate this versus the path we've been following.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely other ways. So, and that's why I had, asked to have information sent that we can talk to the select board and see if this is something we want to pursue. But this is one of the means that's embedded in the 40B process. Yeah. And so, as the planning board, it seems it seems a good place to put down our thoughts as kind of a difficult process as it is getting with each 40B. So I was able to. I did meet with Marcelo to talk through the design of this 40B, and then we could kind of talk back and forth about that aspect of it, and then I wrote down, put that all into text, which I gave to Alvaro. So, but yeah, I mean, Anna, what is your take on that?
I mean, the only section I was supposed to comment on is whether I want to change our basic kind of historic part where we talk about what a great effort we've done with trying to move towards affordable housing. I don't think I ever got kind of an updated memo of our inventory, so there wasn't really much for me to change. I don't know how our numbers currently are. if usually Peter would prepare some type of update, and I did not see anything like that from Alvaro. In all honesty, I don't know if we really need to change very much of our history section from the prior letter, as long as we essentially make it clear, and there's certain paragraphs in the introduction section, as well as really in the introduction section, that make it clear that Ashland we have not been lazy relative to affordable housing. I wonder if it really matters. In the prior application, letters to the state, we tried to make that case and it didn't work. The way the 40B process really structured is until you meet the official threshold, the state appreciates all of your efforts, but your efforts are not the threshold. So I wonder how necessary this truly is, that particular section of it, because we're basically just being like, hey, we've done everything we can, but we really haven't done what we're supposed to do. So I doubt that part is as important as the design element, Tricia, that you have with Marcelo.
I'm not sure that's true, given the seven points that the 40Bs make that's in the letter about things that they actually pay attention to.
And what I mean is
And-
we can really cut and paste the history, but without like new data from the planning department, there's not much to edit. I don't really know what the current percentages are, or if the legal projects, if you recall, there was one project that we
Yeah.
were going through as a town. I have no idea what the status of that
So,
is.
so basically,
So-
the letters we sent from the project before, you would just take exactly what we had there, change the information to the different project address, update the SHI information, and then we could plug it in, would be your thought.
That would be ideal,
Okay.
right?
All right, well, Alvaro, maybe, I think it's time that we're gonna have to start actually putting it together. We only have 6 days before it's due to the state. So, Alvaro, if there's any updating that needs to be made, maybe you can do that, and you and I can just, put the letter
Yeah,
together.
I'm just kind of like looking at what was the last letter that was sent, and
Which would be the 55.
yeah, I think the only
61
the
Waverly.
61
right.
Waverly, and
Yeah.
I think the only like changes, however, not really official because the numbers haven't come out from the state giving us what is our updated SHI. Is what is there, because it's already mentioning 12 Pond Street, it's mentioning 100 Chestnut Street, it mentions 501 Pond Street, and then it mentions Arbella 10 to 60 and 61 Waverly. So I think most of that data is actually updated as best based on the assumptions that those projects were in front of the planning board approved, and then one of them is on court.
Okay,
So we can definitely copy and paste that and then just kind of like give a better introduction to the start of the letter.
okay. So, and Deepa, why don't you just send over what you have?
I did,
Yes.
and
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
I literally sent it this evening to Alvaro. This one is, the big picture is like, it is in the right zoning, you're allowed residential. The site plan had 9 by 18 parking spots, which I thought ours was 9 by 20 by standard.
That is what it is in the bylaws, yeah. But we have been thinking about
There
changing
was
it.
an interesting utility easement that runs right across the site, and the building is sitting right on top of it. There is a grant letter on that easement, but that does not say that they have permission to change that. It is a possibility to grant. So I don't know how that really factors into this whole picture, because the building is sitting right on top of it. So there's going to be foundation of some sort on top of it, and if it needs, that utility easement is for maintenance. I was not clear of how that should, if that even mattered in this picture. The height-wise, our bylaws, because it's highway commerce, I think we are allowed 3 stories or 5, and this one is 4.5. So it says 3 to 35 or 5 stories. So it looks like 5 is allowed in this
By
scenario.
special permit or something.
It does not say special permit anywhere, except if it's like a mixed use.
Okay,
This is not a mixed use, and I think by 40B, you don't need a mixed use component to it. So they have 4.5 stories for this project, which again checks the box. It does not raise any red flags. The topography is kind of sloping backwards, so even though it's 5 stories in the front, it goes up to 3 stories at the back. So I don't know. What I couldn't gauge is the emergency vehicle path inside the property. There is one entry and there's an exit through a kind of like a tunnel into the building. By rough calculations, it looks like there's about 14 feet for a fire engine to go through, but there's also a loading dock right on the other side of that path. So I'm not sure if these are pointers that really would help our case with a 40B application. So from zoning point of view, I didn't find anything that's like, oh my God,
Right.
this is a great point and a strong this one, except like it literally checked a lot of those boxes. They're clearing out trees, which again, I think by our one sentence we have is that not to clear trees on the setbacks that you're supposed to. They clear the frontage, they meet all the front, rear, side, all those setbacks are all checked off. So from zoning and site, I didn't find any red flags except that check of the emergency vehicles, which they may have dimensions, but it was hard to gauge because there's not clear dimensions on the path
Right.
of that.
And which they will have to meet. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any compromise on
Yeah.
fire safety,
Yeah.
so, okay. Okay, well, maybe it's something then that Alvaro and I can combine into a singular letter, a singular voice, and send out to the board for any, final comments.
Yeah. So on the one that I kind of drafted and just put the 2 comments together, there's the first section that is Deepa's comments, and then the second section is what you sent me, Tricia. So on top of it, we can add the previous information sent on the
Okay.
last letter about what is the status of kind of like our housing stock.
And what I can do, Alvaro, is I can send you right now I can cut and paste it out of the prior letter, the part of the history of all of our efforts. So
That's
you can
okay, I have
really
it, so I
plug
can
that
just
in.
copy and paste it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now.
No, he says he has it.
Yeah,
so-
I have it.
I
you.
thought the previous one, Waverly Street, had a little bit of story that may need tweaking to this project.
I can put it up because I have it on my computer.
So we may want to just make sure that it is relevant for this project.
So I think this is what you're referring to, Deepa, right?
Yeah, and it's also, yeah. Is this the Waverly one?
Yep.
Yeah, well, obviously need to go through and, just make sure it's relevant
A
to,
little bit
Update
of
it.
story or context of the site.
Yeah, so that we're
Maybe
not-
further into that.
yeah, so that we're not referring to the
Yeah.
previous project by accident, yeah.
The site appropriateness,
Yeah.
that concept, that part.
Yeah, because that zoning actually gets into,
The
Well-
Wildwood mixed
Yeah.
district, I think that, isn't this the same thing? Yeah. the
Yeah,
Key
so-
zoning.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that would be the.
But
the
if
part
anything,
that
that's
you
where
were- you were
your
looking
Yeah.
at.
comments can be
Yeah.
plugged in on
Yeah.
that section,
Yeah.
and then it can follow in architecture.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Can I ask a quick historical question?
please.
So we're gonna write this letter because it sounds like there's some violations against our zoning in our town, which we wanna push back on. Right? Right, like the parking spaces are not the right size, and there might be cutting down trees that are over 6 inches and stuff like that, and maybe the fire part is not right. But in general, what was the decision to push back on this project? Besides the parking spaces and?
It's basically an opportunity for, so the, obviously the 40B process passes over the planning board and goes right to the zoning board of appeals. So normally a big project would come to the planning board, not the zoning board of appeals. So in a 40B project, it passes by the planning board, goes to zoning board of appeals, and the applications can get a waiver for basically any of our local zoning bylaws. So it's kind of our opportunity to say, actually, our local zoning bylaws are important, and to try to get the project to honor them in a way. So you're kind of presenting that case to the state about why we think our bylaws are important.
Got it. So if they came back and they're like, okay, we'll put in the right size parking spaces and we'll make sure that there's a fire thing, the fire truck can get in, and we'll make sure we don't cut down any trees that are larger than 6 inches from the setback, then we're good with it?
No, so 40B is kind of like another mechanism of permitting rather than site plan, and that goes through the zoning board of appeals, and that overpasses the
I get
bylaws.
that they're bypassing.
Yeah.
this. I
Yes.
understand that part. Thank you.
So,
But what I don't understand is,
Why
it
we're
feels like we're
opposing.
against this, and I'm asking, are we, and what's the history of that?
It's the density. It's a density of apartments that's starting to pop up in all these locations, which is something that I was trying to understand. I kind of searched for projects which were rejected by zoning board of appeals to see what were the conditions where zoning board of appeals rejected a 40B application. One of the applications was because of the density. And I couldn't find a rule of thumb that I could say, you know what, this is 4.9 acres. How many units can you have that? That means the footprint can be shrunk. So in that project that I read, the zoning board kind of reached out to the applicant and asked to reduce the density of that project, which meant that reducing the footprint. And the applicant did not heed to that particular case, and they did not come back to the zoning board of appeals with an updated project or footprint. So the zoning board of appeals literally rejected that project. So that was one condition that I saw, and I could not find a rule of thumb, like what is it per acre that you can say how many units you can, because it felt like 4.9 and what this was like 120 units.
116, I think.
It felt pretty dense. So, but I couldn't figure out what is that rule of thumb that we could come up with.
Yeah, so I guess in maybe an answer to your question as well, that like we don't, in a way, we don't have an opportunity to have the project presented to us or to see it. All we can do is discuss it amongst ourselves and try to look at our zoning and see things that we might want to question if we could, right? And put those in a letter and send it to the, so it doesn't necessarily, I don't think anyone, we're not taking a vote, so no one's making a judgment if we're against it or not, but it's about being able to have some kind of input as it goes to the state. Otherwise, except for going to zoning board of appeals meetings and talking as a resident, the board doesn't have really a voice in that at this point, in that process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I get the feeling that all of the 40B projects that are kind of going over us are all universally seen negatively in town. And what I'm trying to find out is, are they really seen negatively on the holistic part of the town? Joan's idea sounded really good, right? Like, you know, they got a lawyer, they pushed back and got some changes made. But is that something, like, are we pushing back because we just don't want anything there? Or are we pushing back because we really want it to be a smaller project or a less dense project? Or like, what's our real goal and feeling behind this?
So what I
about
can
what
tell
we're
you,
making the
Scott-
change? So,
What I can tell you, Scott, is that during the comprehensive plan process, we had multiple public forums on what the public sees as the way planning should work for Ashland. And there was quite a bit of feedback from the public of concern about resources, density, and essentially growth without planning. The problem with 40B projects in general is they tend to come into a community without much choice. And so you're absolutely right. Sometimes the public just doesn't like that idea, rather than really looking at a project in a unique way. I don't think this planning board has taken a policy position of rejecting every single 40B. I think what this planning board has tried to do is be reflective to the public's concern that these projects should be more sensitive to the town's developmental needs, to our lacking resources, and to design elements and density elements that are more congruent to what fits into Ashland. Because the town of Ashland is not Framingham, it's not Natick, it's its own historic place with people moving here for a particular kind of lifestyle, and generally the comprehensive plan process underlined that is the public's concern. I would not describe it as an outright rejection. I would describe it as a concern about development that's not consistent with Ashland's aesthetic and planning.
Yeah, like for instance, the 10 to 60 Main Street project was actually in front, which is a 40B now, was actually in front of the planning board for about a year. We talked about that project in a different form. And it had, I think when it left us, it had 184 housing units instead of 250. It had a big commercial component. It was being developed in a way that we felt pretty good about it. And we were getting to some design elements that we felt pretty good about that project. But in the end, the owner of the project found that he couldn't get investors in it, that maybe it didn't pencil out. And so the project was pulled and then resubmitted as a very different 40B with very little commercial and a lot more residences, which the project we worked on for a year, we thought was obviously a lot better fit for Ashland and our downtown area. So that's why we did have actually a good deal of feedback into that project. The second one at 61 Waverly, and people correct me if I'm wrong, we had many fewer comments on that, but it was originally presented to us as 3 or 4 buildings, many separate buildings on that site, which we thought it was used the site in kind of a good way, that it was probably an appropriate place for housing. We didn't have a lot of comment on it. But so we sent those to this, we did send some comments to the state. But when the project came back to the Zoning Board of Appeals, it was now all one big building instead of 3 or 4. I don't remember how many it was. It was at least 4.
2 4 stories, 2 5 stories.
Yeah, and then a little community building or something too,
Yeah.
right? So it was a very different project. It became a very different project that went to zoning board. Now it's just one building, right? So yeah, so it feels a little bit like it's a little out of our. We're trying to represent the town and what's best for the town besides just units, but it's a little out of our hands. So the letters, which are a part of the natural process of a 40B, is at least an opportunity for us to describe, as people representing Ashland, what we think the goals are for Ashland, versus an outright rejection of anything that comes across. So that's kind of the history of it. So
I think that's a very good summary. And I will also add, Ashland has done a lot. You know, I want to be clear, my earlier comment that, listen, does it even matter, was not that I don't think we should include in this letter our history of all of our efforts to hit the affordability numbers. We should. I just think it's a cut and paste and update of the numbers. So the rest of it, the design element, is much more substantial, because I think the state appreciates our efforts, but ultimately we have not hit the threshold.
One thing I wondered is like, do all these 3 different projects have different affordability component? Because it felt like this one, 55 West Union, had every unit that you could count against for an affordable unit, versus I don't remember catching that in the other documents, and I was curious, like, because I think this describes 20 to 25% affordable units, but I don't think 55 West Union was talking very similar lines as what 501 Pond was. So maybe something to look into when we are, because it caught my attention this morning and I was like, wait a minute, why are we fighting this battle? Because does this help us actually in another way? So,
Like the percentage of AMI, like
Yeah.
the, oh, okay.
yeah, so maybe something to, I wasn't good at looking at those numbers, but there is a chart on their application which
many
talks about
units?
that AMI percentage. And I wonder if I didn't translate that correctly, so maybe something to look into.
Yeah, that's a
That's a
good
good
idea.
point, yeah.
Look at that more carefully.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of the differentiating factor between each project, so we should kind of start paying attention to that.
Any other questions on that? So we'll put that together. I don't think it'll take long to kind of put the rest of it together and send it out for everyone's kind of review.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next thing on our agenda, I think Alvaro put it in here. Oh, yeah. So the last thing, last page before number 1 is this spreadsheet, and this is one of the things that Kate had developed as not as town clerk, as planning board clerk, was this task list, which had evolved out a little bit out of the retreats we have. They're very few and far between, but once in a while we grab the opportunity to have a retreat and it's just like a 2-hour meeting solely dedicated not to anything on our agenda, but just to discuss what do we want to be working on as a planning board. And so this list has kind of come out of that. Things weren't obviously necessarily tackled by order. Some things came out of that, things we had to address. Others were just issues that had come up now and again that we thought we should address. And so when we have time, we try to plug away at this list. And the list is always growing and changing. And anyone can suggest things that should come onto the list. But I only put it on it's a typical part of our agenda now to have it on there. Because sometimes we have very full agendas and things drop off at the last minute, meaning that we're here and we have time to discuss something, but unless it's on our agenda, we're not allowed to. So it's kind of a placeholder for a general discussion of topics when we find ourselves with extra time. But I wanted to have it in here so that you guys can kind of see it, see where it sits, the kinds of things we think about, the kinds of things we want to tackle. But obviously, there's still room on the page for more.
I guess it's time to update this as well, because it's
Probably
got
is, yeah.
Peter's name and
Oh,
town planner is working on this in present tense, so I think we should update this. But I really like the idea of meeting with zoning board of appeals and maybe kind of like have a working session to see what would be helpful as these 40Bs are coming and what we can brainstorm.
yeah, it might actually be a good question about what, how we can be of more assistance to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do we go like line by line on this, or do we just kind of browse through it and see if there's any updates?
This today, yeah, is more informational, but it'd probably be better to go through it when Camilo is here as well.
And I think this is
But-
more like a working list.
It is,
As
yeah.
we came across challenges, unknown territories, Kate was great enough to kind of start to document it. So it's like a running list. And I love that we started to cross out things as well, like the affordable housing. We obviously had that out of the way, and I think we're starting to do it. So it's not like something taskless for today. It's more, let's keep it active.
Yeah, that said though, if something has caught your eye and that you would like an explanation of what it is, why it's on the list, we'd be happy to take a few minutes to talk about that today. I do see that some of the things need to be taken off.
Well, I just thought it was cool. Anna's working on something about downtown hotels. Seems like it's just a cool idea in general.
I would be delighted, Scott, if there's another planning board member who thinks it's a cool idea, because I've been thinking and talking about it for a while. It does require, I have some research on the hospitality industry and why this is a growing economic development opportunity. And if you have an interest in that as well, and you'd like to work with me to present something to the planning board for zoning change that would allow hotels downtown, because right now our zoning does not permit this. And so, for example, when we were originally considering the mill building project and trying to get that to be less density, and the idea of a hotel was informally discussed, the developer said, well, it's not allowed in your downtown. I can't put a hotel downtown. I can only do housing or mixed use commercial. So if we can rezone to allow hotels downtown, that would absolutely boost the economy. It's a growing area of economic growth, but also would allow us a lot more creative development. That's not just about lots of apartments. So if you have an interest in that, Scott, if you think it's a cool idea, let's connect outside of this without violating open meeting law, and work to together, research, etc.
Yeah, send me an email.
Sounds good.
I'm not 100% sure about the downtown piece of that. I mean, just seeing what we just went through with the historical group, and I doubt the hotel is going to look historical. So that would get the right number of, to be profitable. But something of that nature, like maybe a short walk or something. I don't know. It's kind of a cool idea. I just think it'd be kind of a neat thing to, actually benefit from this.
I can tell you there's mill communities in other states and in Massachusetts that do allow hotels, and there are some beautiful properties that developers have created in different places that are essentially mill buildings that have apartments, commercial use, and hotel space. And so there is a way to make this really exciting. We just need to rezone to allow for this imagination to happen.
Yeah, so it's part of the nice thing about having new people on the board is that you see things with a fresh pair of eyes and have interest and that in things that maybe will move some things forward. So
Absolutely. I'm delighted. I think that if you're into that, Scott, I'll reach out and we can work together on that. As long as it's a 5-member board. So as long as just 2 of us are talking about it, we're not violating open meeting law. And so we can work together and then bring it back to the whole board.
Yeah, just knock around some ideas, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
all right. Anything else jump out
And
at you?
then there's a couple things on here about ADUs.
Right.
And I know that's really big in, the state passed that. I know we changed our bylaws to match this, what the state says, which is awesome. But I don't know if a lot of people understand what ADUs are and how they can help either them or the town, right? And then I know we're also always trying to get towards that affordable number, which may be kind of tough with an ADU because with 900 square feet, you're probably doing 2 beds, 1 bath. It's probably going to be close to the price point or whatever of the right rent. But anyway, what I was wondering is there something we can do, we bring in some experts and have a community open forum to understand and learn about what an ADU is and why would you want to put one, or what would it hurt, or something like that.
Oh, it's interesting that you said that because it's actually, I was speaking with a resident this week, earlier in the week, who was interested in potentially putting in an ADU, but really didn't understand the rules and regulations, or, well, what's step 1 for me? What would be step 2? How would I start to think about this? And she also suggested, hey, you should have some kind of meeting, where we can go through these things. And so, which could be members of the planning board. I've done ADUs in Ashland, as well as helping with the bylaw. Doug Scott obviously would be involved with that, And there may be some other components,
Yeah, I
components
think
as well.
there's a series that happens on the fall and the spring that is led by the town manager's office, that is Citizens Academy, which it's basically like an introduction for residents to know how to like each of the departments work here, how you like pull permits, how you do those kind of things. And Doug, who is our building commissioner and zoning enforcer, provides information on it. So probably will be a great idea to maybe reach out to both of them and see if
Yeah,
there could be an opportunity to kind of like explain residents.
and to have some
Planning
kind of,
session.
right, and to have some kind of documented, step-by-step, you know, this suggested, if you're interested in doing this, what do I do first? Who do I call? What do I, you know, what do I do, right, to build an ADU?
I know builders who build ADUs like that, like they would obviously want to be, like would volunteer their time to teach the public. I mean, I want to make sure I don't want it to turn into a sales
Right,
presentation,
exactly.
which is not
Yep.
what I want. I want it to be, hey, this is
Like a forum,
educational,
yeah.
and this is how you get to that stage. But there's definitely experts in that field that we can tap on.
Yeah.
To do it, and if we word it correctly and make sure it's not a sales pitch or something of that nature, then I think we could win.
Yeah, so definitely that's, like I said, it's actually on my to-do list after that discussion with the resident about how to talk to Doug, actually, about that idea. And 'cause I think we would want him at the table, so. Great. Anything else?
There's just
All right.
a couple ones I saw.
Good. Well, we'll always be keeping it in the binder,
You've been here
updating.
forever, right? Doesn't look like it's been 5 hours.
It's up to 6 hours. 6.5.
Okay, so back to my front page here. All right. Yeah, so basically, it looks like we're just up to our updates. So on section 8 of the agenda is just a list of, as I mentioned before, a list of different committees that are either we have a representative, 1 or 2 representatives on that committee, or the Design Review Committee, which is a committee that sits under the Planning Board. There's not really a project in front of them right now besides the soccer fields, but I think they've already given their notes back to us. I didn't think it was going back again, at least not at this time. Maybe in round 2, maybe it will, but we don't know. Anna, is there anything else with comprehensive plan you wanted to talk about under the updates part, or?
I mean, the only update I'll have is some concern I'm gonna express that we're down a member of the planning board, obviously, we don't have a planner in the room, and the budget for the consultant is running out. And yet there's quite a bit of writing to do to wrap it up, and public forums to be had. So I just want to add some urgency to us on those 2 items.
Okay.
Other than that concern, I have no update.
Okay. All right, and when is the next meeting for that? One just happened, right?
One
Fairly.
happened, there is a subcommittee that I'm on that's meeting on Tuesday to review some additional items. I know the Comprehensive Plan Committee is doing its own review as well. I don't recall what our next official meeting is. I think it's either next week or the week after. I believe it's the week after, which is why the subcommittee of the Comprehensive Plan Committee is meeting Tuesday.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Where'd the funding come for the consultant?
It was voted for on town meeting. I don't remember what meeting that we voted for the money.
But it
for the
came out of
consult-
like the general budget.
I think the challenge,
That I
Scott,
don't remember.
whatever money we put aside for the comprehensive plan, the budget, essentially the consultant team is, I think Michael said July is their last day with us. And meanwhile, we have quite a bit of work that's going to go beyond July to present this to the planning board and then the public. So obviously that's a challenge, and we need some support, and we have no planner.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
I don't remember what bucket it came out of. I'd have to ask Michael Herbert that, but yeah, it was voted on at town
Like,
meeting.
Is it worth like because it sounds like, is the consultant based on like months, or is it based on hours that they work? Like, if we
I
stop.
believe it's
talking
hours
to
based
them-
because the consultant provides a bill to Michael. At one point, Michael had indicated he would show the comprehensive plan committee the bills, but we never saw them. I suspect it's a hourly model, so there's a budget and we're running out of time.
Yeah, well, what I'm wondering is like, is it worth like not talking to the consultant for 2 months while we get a planner and get, a few more, meetings to get this, so that when we hand it to the consultants, like, here, this is what we need to finish up. I have no idea what's going on, so please don't,
Yeah, I
I'm just
think-
asking this question as.
Yeah, no, this is a really good question and I would encourage it to Michael. I'm guessing if there's a contract that defines the timeframes because Michael pulled it out, he was looking on his phone and he said that that's the end of the contract period. Whether there's flexibility to kind of extend that is unclear right now. But it's a really good question and I can certainly bring it back to the comprehensive plan committee as a question of, can this be extended? I was under the impression it is a financial contractual limitation, like you can't really go back.
Yeah,
go
like X
beyond
number of months and X number of hours.
Yeah.
Like that kind of combo,
Yeah.
but I don't know, might be worth asking. Just to,
For sure. I
Yeah.
agree.
we'll
To have
talk
the
to you in
answer.
September
Yeah,
when we get more
absolutely.
of our ducks in a row.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so Anna can look at that. Michael Herbert
It's a-
also, he
It's a great
also,
question, and I can also email Michael and CC Scott. And Scott, I don't know if you've worked with Michael Herbert before, and I can, indicate we have a new member on the planning board who asked this question. I want to make sure I'm framing the question accurately, and I can certainly pass that on to Michael so he can be prepared for the question at the next meeting.
I'm sure he would have an answer, given that that deadline has always been on the horizon, so. Okay, design review committee, we don't have anything there right now, though I do think I believe two members of the design review committee's terms are up at the end of June. So those will
Do
be,
they have a full board?
I think they have
They have
4
4
members.
members.
They have 4 members, 4 out of 5, and no alternate members. I can't remember what the term is called. So there's room for people on that committee. Community Preservation Committee, I will send you that information, and I'll let the chair of that committee know that I am handing things off to you. And I'll send you that documentation so that we can both be ready for that and introduce you at that time. Those are on Tuesday evenings typically. I want to say it's Tuesday, June 3rd, whatever that Tuesday is at the beginning of June. Metro West Regional Collaborative, there was a meeting this morning, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a meeting in person. I wasn't able to make it, but usually those are the meetings that happen once a month, sometimes virtual, sometimes in person, and they're run by MAPC, the regional agency, planning agency, and it's kind of like a space to like learn about what other communities are doing in terms of planning, zoning, various things like that. In some cases, some planners join those meetings. In other cases, some planning board members join those meetings. Currently, the chair of that committee is actually Yolanda. So she's chairing that, and usually for those meetings, I will be present and one of the planning board members will be present. So there is some voting to allocate some fundings that MAPC has for some regional initiatives. It's honestly a really cool opportunity to learn more about what's happening around. So I'm happy to also send that information if you just want to check it out. If anything, just go to one of the meetings just to like look at it. And sometimes when they are in person, they are just open breakfast to go and like talk with legislators so they can update on various topics that are happening.
Can you also send me that
Yeah.
link? Trisha, it may be something that I may think about if Camilo is not jumping into it.
Okay.
It may not only help on my work side, it sounds like that may be a great opportunity to look at something beyond.
Okay. Yeah, well, like I said, we'll look at all those things on the 12th and
Yeah,
get back information about where
Sure.
people think they might fit.
And I can reach out also to MAPC to see if there's a limit of planning board members that can be there. Could probably like you all can be participating, just kind of like get the updates. if,
When
like,
it's
two
usually,
members-
it's usually Zoom,
Yeah,
right?
it's usually
And then a
8
couple-
a.m. on every third Thursday of the month.
And then a couple times a year, it's in person.
It's in person.
And
Mhm.
tonight, this morning
Today
wasn't
was
in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
how early is it?
Like
Sorry?
eight
How
o-
early, what time is the
Like 8
meeting?
o'clock.
8
I
a.m.
think.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, okay, town planner, assistant planner search process. So, between last week and this week, we have interviewed 7 candidates.
Wow.
So it's been actually a lot of time in that process, but we do have some candidates that we're, excited about. So we haven't made any final determinations about that, but I do think that hopefully we'll have a planner on board soon, depending on what their actual availability is. So, and at the same time, I know that Beth Reynolds has been interviewing assistant town planners, and she has several candidates there that she also thinks would be exceptional in the role. So, but is waiting a little bit to see who the new town planner is before selecting an assistant town planner, trying to kind of do things in the right order. So, so that I think is a big sigh of relief that some good candidates have applied to the position and are interested. Planning office updates on, what day was it, Alvaro? When did we meet with Pond Street? What is that project? Pond Street?
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
at 123 Pond Street.
Right, so on Wednesday, this is the project that I asked you guys about. On Wednesday morning, Alvaro, Beth, met with the architect, the developer, and the
Engineer.
civil engineer, attorney,
Mhm.
he does both roles, for the Pond Street James Road project. This is a 216 unit project that has come before the planning board, I don't remember, several months ago now, right? That we saw them
I think it was prior
Just
to
once?
the holidays.
prior to the, was it that long?
I think it
Yeah.
was the informal meeting.
They asked for an informal meeting, so we actually encourage this with developers coming in, that we have an informal meeting with them. So it's before they submit an application, to kind of talk through the project, see where the sticking points are, offer suggestions. And do we have a second meeting with them when they came back? Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
there was one which I met with.
right, but didn't they come back the first time with the
They came
change
back
in appearance?
twice.
They
Twice,
They
okay.
came in
Two
front of
to
us
the
twice.
planning board, and then they have
That's
had
right.
two informally.
Okay, yeah, so that we had 2 informal meetings with the planning board, and then we had 2 meetings just with, first one was with Deepa and I and Alvaro, and their team, and then this morning was Beth and I and Alvaro and their team, as they kind of start to tweak things and iron out things before submitting the actual application. So that meeting was this morning, and the big takeaways from there were that the small building, Anna would probably be sad to hear this, the small building, but I think you knew, the small building that was off on its own, Building D, went from being a commercial component to, what?
To a residential.
Yeah, to an 8-unit residential component, which brought all of that,
Commercial aspect.
the commercial square footage all along the front.
Nice.
And they did that for several reasons. One was because they thought it was a bit more respectful to the other residences over there, of the other houses, to kind of not have that traffic, but to bring the commercial together. And it also brought the commercial together to increase that walkability, that traffic along Pond Street, instead of bringing it back into this little residential corridor. So that was one of the things they wanted to go over. The other one was that the project had become the project had been raised, what do they call it when it's platform? So that the parking
Podium
was,
construction.
what was that?
Podium
Podium
construction.
construction, that was the word I was looking for. But instead of the parking being on the first floor and the building developing in top of it, that option was really too expensive for the project. So the parking was put in different places around the site. And the buildings are being lowered so that the first floor will be residences on the ground and bring the height down. So that was the other thing that they kind of wanted to show, that the tunnel's still there. That was my first thing. Oh, they didn't take out the
And
tunnel.
I think last time we suggested to move that residential and commercial
Yes.
together. And I
Yes.
really like this team where they really listen to you.
They do, yeah.
And then come up with ideas to improvise. So I'm looking forward to seeing this project.
Yeah, so this has been a developer that we've, like I said, that came before the planning board, that we really felt, we put out a suggestion, and the next time you meet with them, they not only just incorporate it, they really put in a big effort to incorporate it, and really, so we've been kind of impressed with that element of them. As I explained to them, however, obviously a meeting with two of us or one of us does not in any way mean that there's any kind of
Consensus. with the board.
consensus of the board, right? That those just opinions of two individuals giving some guidance, but those projects will come before the full board. And they expect that application. I think the owner was hoping for July. George O'Connor said that he felt it was going to be August before they were actually ready to put in a formal application to the board, which I was happy with because it will really get us time, hopefully, to get that planner and assistant planner on board and be ready to, tackle that project.
Were they able to do the calculation between condos and rental properties?
They-
Because that was one exercise he was going to go back to the board to check.
They did go through that, and I don't remember the exactly how he described it, but it's just a harder, financially, getting financing for it is just a lot harder.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the things, like, we asked if they could look at it, and they didn't just nix it, they looked at it, so, and
Cool.
again, kind of that,
Yep.
Listening, obviously, I don't have the pro forma, I wouldn't understand it if I did, but we did talk about it, so. So that's the update on that, and then, I don't have any others, actually.
So for next meeting, we'll have the continuation of 240, 260 Pleasant Street. I'll make sure that legal ad is ready to move forward. There is two applications that have been submitted, and they also will be coming in front of the planning board. And both of them are for 34 Albert Ray Drive. They are wireless communication projects. One is from T-Mobile, the other one is from AT&T. And the applicant is Crown Castle, which was the last one that we reviewed. So, everything will be ready for those public hearings to go by. So on the next agenda, the three of them will be present. I also got an email today from George Connors relating another project, 55 Tilton. And he was requesting also to look for an informal meeting with the planning board. I'm unsure exactly what is the size density that he's proposing for the development, but I'll work to see if it fits on the next agenda or if he has to be a little more moved to the second agenda. We'll work on that, just setting it up, just so I know that it can be an extensive agenda already, and we'll see who'll be the main person staffing for that. And then the only recurrent update is that the YMCA at some point will be applying. Hopefully they are able to do so before or while I'm here, so I'm able to put all that kind of legal ad process. If not, probably will be a little bit of a time until somebody can start working on those logistics.
Okay, another thing I wanted to mention, and I remembered it because of the Tilton Street project, which may be one, I will need to look into it, but it may be one in which I need to recuse myself. So, which reminded me of our associate member
I
that,
was gonna ask you
yeah,
that too.
that now that the election is done, I've been kind of waiting, it's one thing at a time. But now that the election is done, we'll start looking, and maybe I'll get that posted right away to start looking at the associate member. I do know that, even another talent form came in just in the last couple days. Sue Roby let me know about someone interested specifically as the associate position on the planning board. So I think there's an interest in there of multiple people already that might be interested in that position. So it would be good to get that filled as well. So.
What about the other guy who was going for the write-in?
That might be one of them as well. But what we do is we publish it that the position is open. It maybe has already been out there. Maybe it's already been out
I think it's on the
there.
current updates on the
Yeah.
weekly newsletter that Michael sends. There are the opening positions for staff and also for boards.
Yeah, for open business. So we take in applications, and then that seat is a joint application, right? It's a joint
Yes.
application between the planning board and the select board.
Joint appointment.
And then it's a joint appointment, and then it's a 3-year seat. So
It's for the associate seat,
for the
Tricia?
associate seat, yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that the gentleman who opposed you, Scott, who came in second, has already applied for that associate position. So that's
Oh.
good. We already have an applicant that's my understanding.
Oh, I did not see that then.
Yep, I heard about his application through the grapevine that he made it official either yesterday or today. Once
Oh.
he lost the election, he immediately applied for the associate position.
Oh, okay.
So we
may-
appear
may-
to have an applicant.
Good on
already.
him. Great, that's great. I know he was pumped about trying to give back and wanted to get involved and wanted to be on stuff, so.
So
that's
maybe
awesome.
maybe that's the application that Sue mentioned to me. So
Sam, right?
Yeah. That's
I-
really,
I
really
didn't
good.
see the name. She didn't give me a name, and I didn't see it, so I can't confirm. So, but anyway, there seems to be some interest there. Yep. So then we have a joint meeting. We interview the candidates, and we select someone to fill that seat. So, all right. It doesn't look like we know the upcoming meetings. June 12th, we've been talking about that, and then June 26th, maybe not happily for new board members, we have a 3-week break. This is one of the few times during the year that there's an extra Thursday between the last one of the month and the second one of the month. So it'll be a 3-week break before June 12th, but we'll meet then, and then the next one, obviously on June 26th. We don't have any meeting minutes to review this evening, it sounds like. So typically we get the meeting minutes back. There are a few meetings ago, and we review them and approve them. And they need to go up on the website. So, but we don't have any today. And so, does anyone have anything before we adjourn?
I wanted to ask kind of a logistical question, which is, does Scott have an email through our town website yet?
Cindy has already let Paul
Yeah, she
know.
requested IT department to create one. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have it by Tuesday, and then I can send, hopefully we have it by tomorrow maybe. And if we do, then I can send it to both of them, and then I can send it to the board as well.
Yeah, so that you'll each have an Ashland email account. I will also reach out to you guys of providing a little bio that we put up on our webpage so people know who the board members are, and get that updated. Is there any other logistics like that we need to?
Just
Okay.
kind of, I don't know how much familiarity Scott has with open meeting law and why we started using the town emails, because if there's ever a request for our records, it's better to have your town email be the collecting place rather than having to find town emails inside your personal email. So I just want to encourage, explain that to new members in general, why we do that.
Yeah.
Because anything,
And I
anything.
assume
Thank you.
town clerk will probably, if she hasn't already, reach out to you about certain kinds of trainings
Yeah,
that you
I
probably,
got that today.
it's fun stuff.
And Scott, once you're up and running in emails, please reach out to me and we'll connect on the hotel thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of
Awesome.
interesting. I like funky ideas, Like, could
Cool.
be different, could be new.
And I know Marcelo, who's a former member of the planning board, seemed pretty excited about the idea as well. So maybe we can engage with him as far as brainstorming as well. He's no longer a planning board member, so it would not be a violation.
Right, that's right. He's still around and helping, so. All right, good. If there is nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:02.
Do you want a motion?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:02.
All right, is there a second?
Second that.
And a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Scott Pelletier, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. All right, thanks, everybody,
Have
and
a good
welcome.
evening, everybody.